Day one of training camp is complete. We'll dive into some takeaways, including a Miro experiment, why Jason Robertson is set to miss most of camp, and some insightful words on Jamie Benn from Jim Nill.
You're Locked On Stars, your daily podcast on the Dallas Stars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, Stars fans. I'm Joey Erickson, former producer 105 Through the Fan. Please be sure to subscribe. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. And as always, thank you so much for making us a part of your day and making us your first listen. Live from a hotel room in Albuquerque, New Mexico, welcome to a Friday edition of Locked On Stars. Training camp is underway. Day one is complete, and we have to discuss what we saw on the ice yesterday, which includes a Miro Heiskanen experiment. I think you know what I'm hinting at. Plus, why Jason Robertson is set to miss most of camp. I'll tell you a bit later on in case you missed it. And General Manager Jim Nill pretty much all but confirmed Jamie Benn is going to stay in Dallas. Stick around to find out what I mean as well. Later on today's episode of Locked On Stars, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, never miss an episode. The first preseason game is tomorrow against the St. Louis Blues. Hockey is back, baby, in the Lone Star State. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Well, as soon as Matt Dumba and Ilya Lyubushkin were acquired by the Dallas Stars over the summer, we have all been kicking around the idea that Miro Heiskanen can finally play on his strong side. As a lefty, he plays on the left side. Either Dumba or Lyubushkin can fit in on that right side, and maybe this will open up a brand new game, not only for number 4, but the Dallas Stars as well. So we had all of our eyes on what the pairings were going to look like up front and on the back end for the Dallas Stars. So here we go. Your first pairings from day one of training camp. This comes via Aaliyah from the Dallas Morning News. Make sure to follow her. She's on the ground. She is phenomenal. Asimakopoulos, I believe is how you pronounce her last name. I may have butchered that. I did my best, okay? I did my best. But Miro Heiskanen on that top pairing, along with Matt Dumba. Thomas Harley was paired with Lyubushkin. And then we saw Esa Lindell with Nils Lundqvist. So those were your 6 defensemen on day one. Heiskanen lined up on the left side with Dumba, and Brian Ray, of course, the wonderful host of the pre- and post-game show for the Dallas Stars, mentioned DeBoer was quick to temper expectations on the pairing, but he did acknowledge they want to experiment more with lefty-righty combinations on the blue line. So good signs all the way around. You know, I've been harping on this, especially over the last 2 weeks. I don't want to see Miro on his weak side to begin the season. I think Dallas brought in players like Dumba and Lyubushkin to give them that lefty-righty pairings, and they have it now. Use it in the preseason. If it's not what they like, they can always go back to Miro and Harley, and then maybe Lyubushkin can fit in with Lindell. You name it. There's so many different combinations out in the world. But Miro and Dumba, the top pairing. So that'll be intriguing. I have sort of been on the forefront of having Lyubushkin paired with Miro, and Ryan Chambers pointed to this in our conversation over the past few days. Because of Lyubushkin's success with Morgan Riley on the top pair, maybe they would be a nice fit. But Matt Dumba sort of screams Roman Polak, right? At this point in his career, more defensive-minded. And if he somehow gets back to a level that is above what we saw from him last year in Arizona and Tampa Bay towards the tail end of the season, that could be a really, really nice pairing. Dumba brings that physical presence. You don't have to worry about Miro getting pushed around. You sort of have a policeman on that pairing as well. And Ryan pointed to that as well. He's sort of a guy that can bring physicality. He loves to hit anything that moves. And maybe that could be a nice sort of yin and yang situation with Miro and Dumba. But good to see that they're experimenting with it. We'll probably see him alongside Lyubushkin at some point as well. Harley and Lyubushkin is really intriguing as well. Sort of a bigger second pairing, and I think could be a nice mixture of some offense and some shutdown defense. Lyubushkin does have a little offense in his game. It's not going to be as prolific as someone like Harley after what we saw this past season with 15 goals. But Lyubushkin has a big shot, and he has spent some time on some power plays in the past. He's not going to get that opportunity here in Dallas, you would not think, unless the power play is just abysmal. And there have been stretches under Pete DeBoer where the power play has looked really, really atrocious. But for now, it's going to be Miro, and you would expect Harley to work in there on the second unit. But awesome to see that Pete DeBoer and the staff are experimenting with it, which is a good sign. Instead of just rolling with what they did last year, they have the combinations, they have the right mix of righties and lefties. So go ahead and see what you can get out of Miro being on his strong side. I know General Manager Jim Nill echoed that there weren't a lot of concerns about him playing on either side because, frankly, it may not matter at the end of the day, but I think it really will, especially in Miro's own zone. Offensively, it may not make as much of an impact, but in his own zone, when you're talking about leading a breakout, starting a breakout, so much easier when you can come around the net. You're on your strong side, you're on your forehand, you can make that crisp pass. He's really talented. He can make a pass on his backhand as well. But you talk about moving quickly, making smart decisions. He wants to get to his forehand. It's easier to do that on his strong side. And that's not only opening up the surface for him and his options, it opens it up for the wingers and the center. Gives him different options and gives him more time and space in order to make plays up the ice, because Miro is coming around and gives that little head shake, and then boom, one pass, you're out of the zone, and then the Stars are in the other end. And we all know the best defense is playing offense, and we saw a lot of that out of Dallas last season. So some intriguing stuff on the back end for Dallas. Your pairings, once again, Miro and Dumba. You had Harley and Lyubushkin, and then Lindell and Lundqvist. DeBoer wants to temper expectations, but it's a great sign out of day one. If we're going to take a big takeaway, that's one right there. Miro is on his strong side, and he's paired with Matt Dumba. Yes, Stars fans, Matt Dumba is a Dallas Star. We're going to have to get used to that. Up front, by the way, Rope Hintz was in between Evgeny Dodonov and Wyatt Johnston. Jason Robertson is set to miss most of camp. We'll get into that in just a moment as well. But you had Duchesne, Sagan, and Marchman, all the Ontario boys together. No surprise there. And there it is, Maverick Bourque in between Jamie Benn and Logan Stankoven. You can go ahead and put together Bourque and Stankoven once again. And then, as per usual, over the last few seasons, you just throw the captain, Jamie Benn, on the young kids line. He's going to find out he's going to find his game either way. And he's going to find out how to play with the young studs as well. And she put here, fourth line is just vibes. We imagine it's going to be Sam Steele, Colin Blackwell, Matej Blumel, and Oscar Bach as well are on the training camp roster. So Blumel and Bach are going to be battling for possibly being that 13th forward. And Jason Robertson, who may miss a few games, it's expected he's going to be back for the season opener, but let's just say worst case scenario, they want to be a bit extra cautious. Maybe they're going to need an extra forward. So Blumel and Oscar Bach will sort of be battling for that. And no surprise, you got Jake Oettinger and Casey DeSmith. I want to get into some of what Jim Nill said about Jake Oettinger on Wednesday as well. Some interesting stuff, just dealing with contracts and different deals down the line for the Dallas Stars, because Jake Oettinger is going to be a big one, going to be a massive one. Maybe not monetarily, but just in terms of where the franchise is headed. Jake Oettinger will probably be a massive part of what's going on here in Dallas. But yeah, so Miro is on his strong side's a good sign. Up front, it's about what you expected. We kind of had a really, really nice idea of what the trios were going to look like, which is good. The Stars are dealing with a lot of continuity, and it's something they haven't had a ton of when you look back 10 years ago. For about a decade, or the last 3 or 4 seasons, they're really, really starting to find out and build around some of their core players like Jason Robertson and Rope Hintz and Johnston. They're really starting to figure it out, which is a great, great sign. Okay, Jason Robertson, as I just mentioned, he's going to miss most of training camp. Kind of was dropped on us. It was kind of a bomb that was dropped on us on Wednesday. I'll share with you why in just a moment. Today's episode of Locked On Stars is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even faster. Game Time Picks filters out all the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching for thousands of tickets. Game Time is obsessed with finding you ways to save money on tickets, and you name it, they have it. You want to go to the Stars games here in a couple of months, or even the preseason games. You want to go to the finale of the Texas Rangers season. You can get it with Game Time. Comedy, theater, they have it on Game Time. Takes all the guesswork out of buying tickets. Download the Game Time app. Takes 30 seconds on your smartphone. Create an account and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. So everybody arrives on Wednesday, and we're all geeked up, ready for training camp to begin. The Dallas Stars 2024-25 season is set to get underway, and then all of a sudden, this bomb just is dropped on us from General Manager Jim Nill about Jason Robertson. And it comes out Robertson had to have surgery on his foot to remove a cyst in August, and he will not skate with the team for now in camp as he rehabs. He will miss the majority of training camp, but they did say he's expected to be ready for the season opener. Now, I will say we have some experience with this with Jason Robertson. If you remember, a few seasons ago, he held out for a new contract. And heading into that season, when he eventually got paid, he ended up going off for 109 points. So good things happened for Robertson, even though he wasn't a part of training camp the entire time. So possibly there could be some parallels here. Maybe it happens again. He misses a lot of training camp and it won't matter. And he comes off and he has just a blazing start to begin the season. We can all hope for that, but hopefully Jason Robertson will be okay. Just nobody was really expecting that, but either way, it's a good sign that it should be handled. He'll be rehabbing here over the next few weeks, and hopefully he'll be ready to go for the season opener, which is less than a month away now, which is pretty incredible. Stars opening up the season against the Nashville Predators. So Evgeny Dadonov was practicing in his spot as of right now yesterday, along with Rope Hintz and Wyatt Johnston. Dadonov, we foresee probably jumping down on that fourth line with Sam Steele and Colin Blackwell. That is what we believe is going to shape up over the next few weeks or so. I'm really intrigued to see what players kind of come out and make a name for themselves, whether that's Blue Mel, who has had some time in the NHL. Oscar Bach, I know they're very high on. Arttu Hiru is another that's getting a nice look at, and he really had a nice few games against Detroit over in Traverse City during the prospects camp. So I'm really, really curious to see which guys sort of show out, make a name for themselves, and stick around for possibly a lot longer throughout the preseason. They make it past the first couple of cuts, and they really are battling for a spot. Look, there's not a ton of spots available for Dallas. I mean, frankly, there's really none when you look at it all, right? On the back end, they're pretty filled up. You got Miro, you got Dumba, Harley, Lundqvist, Lindell, and Lyubushkin, right? There's 6 right there. And then Brendan Smith is going to be your 7th defenseman, right? Up front, I mentioned in the first segment, you got your top 9 that's pretty much solid as can be. Still have to add Robertson to the mix when he gets back. And then that 4th line with Steele and Blackwell and Blumel and Bach will probably fight to be your 13th forward. And who knows even if they'll be able to be on the roster on day one with cap space and all that good stuff. Maybe they have to start in the AHL, and we'll see what the rotation is going to look like. So when you really look at it, there are not a lot of spots up for grabs at this point, right? When Wyatt Johnston came in a few seasons ago, there was some room for him to make some space for himself, and he played his way into the lineup. It wasn't a guarantee he was going to stay, right? They thought maybe he has to go back to juniors after a stay for what was it, a dozen games or so. But he played really well, and you could tell he was getting better, getting more comfortable. And then he was off and running and had a really, really nice rookie season. And we all know what he did this past year. So there really aren't a whole lot of opportunities for that sort of story this season. But we still have to keep a close eye on these players like Oscar Bach and Arttu Hiru, and even looking further down the depth chart, and Arcuri and Strangis on the back end, Bertucci, Minatian, Bixel, Petrovic, right? All these players that may not have an impact this year or even 2 years down the line, because Dallas is pretty solid in a lot of areas. But, 3-4 years from now, these are the guys that you expect to come up and are going to be a part of your new core. Dallas is sort of ushering in this youth movement, as me and Ryan sort of talked about. It's a changing of the guard right now, where you have a nice mixture of young talent and your old vets like Sagan and Ben, who are getting up there and are sort of on their way out at this point. I'll get into that a bit later with Jamie Benn here. Some curious words from General Manager Jim Nill. You look at Johnston, Robertson, Miro, Rope. I think Rope is the oldest player out of that list I just mentioned, and he's really just entering his prime as well at 27 years of age. So there is a lot of excitement. I didn't even mention Maverick Bork and Stankoven, who are just beginning their young careers. This is what gets me fired up, and I think it's a lot of Stars fans really excited about what's to come. And this is the time to win Stanley Cups. I think this is a point I'm going to be making a lot here over this next season, especially. This is the time to win. They say it in football all the time. You really want to try to win a Super Bowl on that rookie contract with the quarterback, because he's really cheap and you can surround him with a lot of good talent. Once you pay that quarterback a ton of money, it becomes a bit harder to get a lot of really solid pieces around him unless you draft well, right? And the Stars have drafted extremely well. And they've built this really nice young core around young pieces that aren't making a ton of money right now. Robertson is going to get a new deal here soon. Oettinger is going to get a new deal after this season. Johnston is. So is Stankoven. So is Bork. You want to capitalize now while you have some veterans like Duchesne and Ben and Sagan, who are still making a significant impact for you. Miro is a good piece and a steal at the number he's at. And now you added Dumba and Lyubushkin, and we have some concerns about how much they were paid, but you win a Stanley Cup. Look, I'm going to turn a blind eye to whatever contract was sent their way. Can Dallas win when they have a lot of good pieces around them? Because this is not going to be this way for years. There's going to be your core, but this doesn't come around all the time where you just have this plethora of talent and all these really, really good pieces. It doesn't happen all the time. And we know that. We've seen that. We've seen the other side of it. This is a great time to be a Stars fan, number one, but it has to pay off at the end of the day. You have to pay it off and win a Stanley Cup. And Ryan, over Sarcastic Remarks, mentioned it's sort of a Stanley Cup or bust year. And it may get that. It may start to feel that way towards the end of the season. We're into March. When we get into April, it's okay. Like, how long is this really gonna stay around? You can't just run it back consistently. Not in today's NHL with the cap. So, man, it's a lot of excitement. I'll say that. Okay. So on Wednesday as well, Jim Nill came out and pretty much all but confirmed Jamie Benn is going to remain in Dallas. I'll tell you what he said and why it's pretty significant in just a moment. Today's episode of Locked On Stars is brought to you by FanDuel. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we have something a little different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV-based plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and current form of payment, and you can cancel any time. Sundays are meant for watching football. The Dallas Cowboys are back in action. We plop up on the couch and we watch the boys take on whoever, and we bet the boys to win. Isn't that right? Not all the time. We can see how it can get a little haywire like it did last week. But FanDuel is a place for you to get in on the action. You can download it on your smartphone as well. It takes 30 seconds. Download the FanDuel app. Just visit FanDuel.com. Get that 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket with YouTube and YouTube TV. Just visit FanDuel.com. Download America's #1 sportsbook. All right. So Jamie Benn, of course, is entering the final year of his contract, and he's sort of been a hot button issue or a hot topic over the summer, at least here on Locked On Stars. And we've thrown around the idea of what he could get financially in Dallas if he stayed, what he could get possibly on the open market. And I've been on the record of saying I'm like 75-25% sure Jamie Benn is going to come back to Dallas. He feels like a Dallas Star, and he feels like he's going to stay here for his whole career. But, you know, we've thought that of some other players like Joe Pavelski, even in San Jose, Stamkos, too. His situation a bit different with the amount of money they paid, and Stamkos won a lot of cups. Pavelski obviously did not. Benn is still trying to track that down. But Jim Nill came out and he said, rather, I would say convincingly, he said, as long as I'm the GM here, he's going to be a Dallas Star. Well, you just bumped my odds up to like 99.8%, Jim, and he's going to stay a Dallas Star. Mr. Nill usually sticks to his word. He did about Thomas Harley, getting that deal done before training camp. So, yeah. So Ben is more than likely going to stay a Dallas Star. Let's say Jim Nill stays the general manager. I think there's a really good bet that's going to happen after back-to-back GM of the Year awards voted on, of course, by his peers in the National Hockey League. So what does that look like again? 2 years feels about right. 2 years feels about right for Jamie Benn, because he's going to be 36 by the end of this season. Couple years takes him to 38. $9.5 million comes off the books. $9.5 million comes off the books. That's money that can be used to get guys like Stankoven, Johnston, etc. done. 2 years feels really good. Is it going to be somewhere $4.5 million? Somewhere in that range? You got to be real careful about what he's going to get per season business you have to get done in the future. It's just 3 seems a bit risky. And I love Jamie Benn. He's done a lot for this organization. I think 2 says, hey, come back and you can try to get it done. If you don't, you don't. He's still been, he's been very productive. I don't necessarily worry about his game, so to speak, because he's been really good over the past few seasons. And I think his game kind of ages well, as long as he stays healthy, and you could say that about everybody, but he's been relatively healthy. And boy, he gives Dallas something they don't always have. And that is a little attitude and a little, like puff your chest out. Like, come on, like let's get this done as he dragged Dallas through the postseason last year. So yeah, I think Jamie Benn's going to stay a Dallas Star. So we're going to have to kick that around a bit more as the season wears along about kind of where he fits and what's the number and all that. I'm really intrigued. I really am, because he's been a staple here in Dallas forever. And Jim Nill, he came out and said it. He's going to stay a Dallas Star. So yeah, a few more years of the captain is going to happen. So just gotta wrap your heads around it. I know some people are going to want him gone because that $9.5 million off the books is juicy, but that doesn't look to be the case. Just one more thing before we get out of here, because General Manager Jim Nill mentioned this as well about Jake Oettinger, who of course is a RFA. He's got arbitration rights at the end of this season as well. And he said he had not talked to him yet, but will acknowledge there's a few other contracts out there that could shape the market more that have yet to be determined. And one of those is Jeremy Swayman. And there's been a bit of a debacle there in Boston with Swayman over the past couple of days. They haven't been able to get a deal done yet, which is sort of surprising with what Swayman has done recently. So that is one that's going to shape the market. I believe Shesterkin is up at the end of the season too. So that could play in. I could be wrong on that, but yeah, Swayman is going to be one of those big dominoes that has to fall before Dallas sort of knows where Oettinger may live. And we've kind of thrown that around as well, but I'm not going to get into numbers anymore here on today's episode. Sometimes it makes my brain hurt. And he's going to get paid what he's going to get paid at this point. You got to have a number one netminder, and Jake has proven that at this point in time. We'll just see if it's going to be, long term, going to be 8 years, or going to be a little less. That'll be that'll probably be the determining factor in a lot of ways. But day 1 of training camp is complete. Hockey is back, and man, all eyes are on the Dallas Stars and the preseason tomorrow night, taking on the St. Louis Blues at the AAC. We'll break down what we see on a Monday episode of Locked On Stars. It'll be a busy weekend for me. We got 3 games, and then I'll be on a bus on Monday to Minneapolis. It's a long road trip. I'm going to be in hotels for the next week coming at you. So bear with me on some of these episodes. It's going to be a long 14, 15 days, but wouldn't ask for anything else. Can't wait. And Stars hockey is back. You guys have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. Hit the subscribe button, please. Hit the notification bell. We're almost 2,500 subscribers. Let's keep boosting up those numbers. Drop a like, drop a comment below as well about what you're looking forward to in training camp. Who do you have your eye on, or anything else you want to share with me on a Friday? Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you tomorrow. or I should say, I'll see you on Monday. So long, Stars fans.